The morning sun had barely crested the eastern hills when Fiona Turner realized something was terribly wrong. 3 days had passed since her husband Amos had ridden into Randsburg for supplies, a journey that should have taken no more than a single day's ride. Standing on the rough-hewn porch of their small homestead in the California territory, Fiona clutched her 6-month-old son William to her chest, her eyes scanning the dusty trail that disappeared over the horizon. It was 1878, and life in the mining town of Randsburg was difficult but manageable. Amos had struck a modest claim 2 years prior, enough to build them a life, if not riches. They had married shortly after, and William had come along last winter. Their future had seemed as bright as the California sun. "He'll be back," Fiona whispered to William, who gurgled and reached for a strand of her chestnut hair that had escaped her simple bun. "Your pa wouldn't leave us." But her voice betrayed her fear as she bounced the baby gently in her arms. The sound of approaching hoofbeats pulled her from her worries. Shielding her eyes from the morning glare, she watched as a lone rider approached. It wasn't Amos. This man sat taller in the saddle, his silhouette unfamiliar against the landscape she had come to know so well. As the rider drew closer, Fiona recognized Adam Ryder, a cowboy who occasionally helped at the Richardson Ranch a few miles over. He'd tipped his hat to her in town a few times, but they'd rarely exchanged more than pleasantries. Adam dismounted with fluid grace, removing his weathered Stetson as his boots hit the dirt. "Mrs. Turner," he said, his voice low and respectful. "I was passing through Randsburg yesterday. Heard some folks talking about your husband. Said they ain't seen him since Tuesday." Fiona felt her throat tighten. "I've been waiting. He was just going for supplies." Adam nodded, his blue eyes serious beneath a shock of sandy hair. At 28, he'd been riding the range for more than a decade, developing the kind of quiet confidence that came from facing down storms, rustlers, and the unforgiving wilderness. "Mrs. Turner, I'd be happy to ride into town, find out why he's delayed." His gaze fell to the baby in her arms. "You stay with the little one. No sense in exposing him to the trail." Fiona hesitated, torn between relief at the offer of help and wariness of entrusting her worries to a virtual stranger. But William fussed in her arms, and the thought of making the journey with him, not knowing what awaited her, made the decision clearer. "I'd be grateful, Mr. Ryder," she said finally. "Amos was carrying our savings. He planned to get flour, coffee, some fabric. Nothing that should have kept him." Adam replaced his hat, nodding. "I'll head back now. With luck, he's just had wagon trouble or some such delay. Would you like some water before you go? Or coffee?" "No, madam. Sooner I get there, sooner we'll know what's happened." He paused. "Do you have enough supplies to manage a few days?" The question made her situation suddenly stark. "Yes," she said, though her pantry was growing bare. "We'll manage." Adam's eyes lingered on her face a moment too long, seeing more than she wanted to reveal. "I'll bring back some basics, just in case," he said, mounting his horse in one smooth motion. "Should be back by tomorrow evening at the latest." Fiona watched him ride away, dust billowing behind his horse. William whimpered against her shoulder, sensing her distress. "It's all right," she murmured to her son, though her heart hammered with uncertainty. "We're all right." The day stretched endlessly before her. Fiona tended to her garden, fed the chickens, and kept busy with the countless tasks required to maintain their small homestead. But her eyes continually drifted to the horizon, hoping to see Amos's familiar figure. Night fell, and Fiona laid William in his cradle, singing softly until his eyelids grew heavy. When he finally slept, she sat by the window with Amos's rifle across her lap. Out here, a woman alone was vulnerable, and the isolation that had once seemed peaceful now felt threatening. Morning came with no sign of Amos or Adam. Fiona moved through her chores mechanically, trying to keep her worries at bay for William's sake. By mid-afternoon, her water barrel needed filling, and she strapped William to her back to make the short trek to the creek. She was filling the second bucket when she heard hoofbeats again. Heart racing, she gathered the water and hurried back to the cabin, reaching it just as Adam Ryder rode into view. One look at his face told her the news wasn't good. Adam dismounted, his expression grim as he approached. He'd tied several packages to his saddle, the supplies he'd promised, but Fiona barely noticed them. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Is he He's alive, Mrs. Turner, Adam said quickly. But there's trouble. Relief flooded her, followed immediately by fresh anxiety. What kind of trouble? Adam removed his hat, twisting it in his hands. Your husband got into a card game at Malloy's saloon. Lost pretty heavy from what I gather. He paused, then accused the winner of cheating. Fiona closed her eyes briefly. Amos had a temper, especially when it came to matters of pride. Go on. There was a fight. Your husband pulled a knife. The other man, fellow named Blackwell, he's the brother-in-law of Sheriff Davies. Adam met her eyes steadily. Amos is in the jail. They're charging him with attempted murder. The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Fiona clutched William tighter, grateful for his solid weight against her. But that's impossible. Amos wouldn't. There were witnesses, Mrs. Turner. 6 of them, all saying the same thing. Adam stepped closer, his voice softening. The money's gone too. All of it, from what Amos told me. Fiona felt her legs weaken. She stumbled to the porch steps and sat down heavily. How much is the bail? She asked, knowing even as she spoke that they had nothing left. $500. Adam sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Trial's set for next week. If he's found guilty, he could hang. The words fell from her lips like stones. William began to fuss, and she mechanically rocked him. I brought supplies, Adam said after a moment. Flour, coffee, beans, some bacon. Should last you a while. Fiona barely heard him. Her mind was racing through options, each one bleaker than the last. They had no more savings. The mine claim was modest, barely covering their needs. Their nearest family was back east, too far to help. I need to see him, she said finally. I need to talk to him. Adam shook his head. The sheriff's not allowing visitors except kin. And with the baby. He gestured to William. It's a hard journey, Mrs. Turner. He's my husband. I know. But right now, your boy needs you here. Adam stood, retrieving the packages from his horse. I'll help you get these inside. Then we can figure out what to do next. Inside the cabin, Adam efficiently stored the supplies while Fiona prepared a simple meal. They ate in silence, the weight of the situation hanging between them. Why did you help us? Fiona asked suddenly. You barely know us. Adam considered his answer. My pa always said you measure a man by how he treats folks who can't do nothing for him in return. He offered a small smile. Besides, I've been in tough spots before. Know what it's like to need help and have nobody offering. Fiona studied him, seeing beyond the weathered exterior to the decency beneath. Thank you, she said simply. I'll ride back tomorrow, Adam said. See if I can talk to the sheriff, maybe get a better sense of what we're facing. The word slipped out before she could stop it. Adam met her gaze steadily. You don't have to face this alone, Mrs. Turner. That night, after Adam had departed to make camp by the creek, refusing her offer to sleep in the barn with firm insistence on propriety, Fiona wept silently by William's cradle. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Just days ago, they'd been a family with plans and dreams. Now she faced losing everything, their savings, possibly their home if Amos was convicted, and worst of all, her husband himself. When morning came, Adam was already tending to her chickens. He'd fetched fresh water and stacked wood by the door. Small kindnesses that threatened to undo her carefully maintained composure. I made coffee, he said as she emerged with William. Hope that's all right. More than all right, she admitted. Thank you. They shared a simple breakfast, and Fiona found herself telling Adam about her life before Ransburg, growing up in Pennsylvania, meeting Amos at a church social, their journey west following gold fever and dreams of a better life. Do you regret it? Adam asked. Coming west. Fiona looked around at the small cabin, at the vast landscape surrounding them. No, she said finally. It's hard, but it's ours. Or it was. Her voice caught. Adam reached across the table, almost touching her hand before pulling back. Don't give up yet. There might be a way. He rode out an hour later, promising to return the following day. Fiona watched him go, feeling strangely comforted by his promise. There was something solid about Adam Ryder, a dependability that made her believe he would do whatever he could to help. True to his word, Adam returned the next evening, but his news was grim. Sheriff won't budge on the bail, he reported, sitting at her table while William crawled nearby. Says the evidence is strong against Amos. The man he attacked, Blackwell, he's got influence in town. Fiona set down the coffee she was pouring, her hand trembling. Did you see Amos? Adam nodded. Briefly. Through the bars. He's not in good spirits, Mrs. Turner. What did he say? Adam hesitated. He asked after you and the boy. Said to tell you he's sorry. The words hung in the air between them. Sorry for what? For gambling away their money? For potentially leaving them alone? For failing them? What am I going to do? Fiona whispered. Adam leaned forward. I've been thinking. I've got some savings. Not 500, but close to 3. I could know. Fiona cut him off. I can't accept that. It's not charity. It would be a loan. She shook her head firmly. We have no way to repay you. And if Amos is convicted? Adam fell silent, respecting her refusal, though his eyes said he didn't agree. There's something else, he said after a while. I talked to Judge Pearson. He's sympathetic, but says the case looks bad. Multiple witnesses, all saying the same thing. Unless we can prove Blackwell was cheating. Was he? Probably. He's got a reputation. But proving it? Adam shook his head. The trial's in 4 days. 4 days to somehow find $500 or evidence that might exonerate Amos. It seemed impossible. Adam stayed for supper, then helped Fiona secure the livestock for the night. As they finished, William began crying from inside the cabin. You should go to him, Adam said. I'll see you tomorrow. But Fiona caught his arm. Why are you doing all this? Really? In the fading light, his expression was difficult to read. Because it's the right thing to do. It was the answer she expected, but somehow Fiona sensed there was more he wasn't saying. The next few days fell into a pattern. Adam would ride to town in the morning, returning by evening with updates about Amos and the case. He brought fresh supplies each time, ignoring Fiona's protests that she couldn't pay him back. In between, he helped around the homestead, fixing the sagging corner of the roof, repairing the chicken coop, tasks Amos had left undone. On the 3rd day, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, William asleep in his cradle beside them, Adam broached a difficult subject. Mrs. Turner, Fiona. It was the first time he'd used her given name. If Amos is convicted, what will you do? The question had haunted her sleepless nights. I don't know, she admitted. Try to keep the claim going, I suppose. For William's sake. Alone. I don't have many options. Adam was quiet for a long moment. There's another possibility. My brother has a ranch near Sacramento. He's always looking for help. It would be a fresh start, away from the memories here. The offer was tempting, but Fiona shook her head. This is our home. The only one William has known. I can't just abandon it. You wouldn't have to decide right away, Adam said gently. Just keep it in mind. That night, Fiona lay awake, turning their conversation over in her mind. Adam's kindness continued to surprise her. In the space of a few days, he'd become a steadying presence in their chaotic lives, asking nothing in return. The day of the trial dawned clear and hot. Adam arrived early, his horse saddled and ready. I've arranged for Mrs. Dawson to watch William, he announced. The pastor's wife, he added, seeing her hesitation. She's happy to help. Fiona had been torn about attending the trial, but the thought of Amos facing judgment alone was unbearable. Thank you, she said, gathering her things. The ride to Randsburg was tense and mostly silent. As they approached town, Fiona's anxiety mounted. She hadn't been to town in months, preferring to let Amos handle their business. Now, riding beside Adam, she felt the curious stares of townspeople. The courthouse was packed. Fiona sat in the front row, her back straight despite her fear. When Amos was brought in, his hands shackled, she barely recognized her husband. His face was gaunt, his eyes haunted as they met hers briefly before darting away in shame. The trial proceeded quickly. Witness after witness testified to seeing Amos lunge at Blackwell with a knife after losing heavily at cards. When Blackwell himself took the stand, a smooth-talking, well-dressed man with cold eyes, he painted Amos as a sore loser who couldn't accept his own poor play. Amos's testimony was halting and defensive. Yes, he had lost their savings. Yes, he had pulled a knife. But he insisted Blackwell had been cheating, though he admitted he hadn't actually seen how. By midday, it seemed all but certain the verdict would go against Amos. During a recess, Fiona approached him where he sat with his court-appointed lawyer. Amos, she whispered, reaching for his hand across the table. He flinched away. You shouldn't have come, Fiona. You shouldn't see me like this. You're my husband. His laugh was bitter. Some husband. Gambling away our money. Leaving you and the boy alone. He finally met her eyes. I've ruined everything. Before she could respond, the bailiff called them back to order. As Fiona returned to her seat, she felt Adam's steady presence beside her, his quiet strength offering comfort she hadn't asked for but desperately needed. The closing arguments were brief. The prosecutor emphasized Amos's violent response to losing, painting him as a danger to society. His defender pointed to his previously clean record and family responsibilities, arguing for leniency. When the judge announced a short recess before delivering the verdict, Adam touched Fiona's elbow. I need to check something, he murmured. I'll be right back. Fiona barely nodded, her eyes fixed on Amos's slumped figure. What would become of them if he went to prison? How would she raise William alone? Adam returned just as the judge re-entered the courtroom, his face flushed as if he'd been running. He slipped a folded paper to Amos's lawyer, who frowned but read it quickly. The lawyer immediately requested permission to approach the bench. A hushed conversation followed, with the prosecutor joining them. The judge's expression shifted from annoyance to interest as he examined whatever was on the paper. Finally, he called for order. In light of new evidence, this court will take a 1-hour recess, he announced. Counsel will meet in my chambers immediately. Confused murmurs filled the courtroom as people filed out. Fiona turned to Adam, questions in her eyes. What did you do? Adam's smile was grim but satisfied. Found someone willing to talk. One of the barmaids at Malloy's. She saw Blackwell using marked cards that night. Hope flickered within Fiona. Will it be enough? We'll see. The hours stretched endlessly. Fiona and Adam waited outside the courthouse, neither speaking much, both lost in thought. When they were finally called back in, the atmosphere had changed. The judge looked stern as he addressed the court. New testimony has been entered into evidence suggesting that the alleged victim, Mr. Blackwell, may have been engaged in fraudulent behavior during the card game in question. While this does not excuse violent retaliation, it does change the nature of the case. He turned to Amos. Mr. Turner, you are guilty of assault, regardless of provocation. However, in light of these new circumstances and your previous good character, I am sentencing you to 30 days in the county jail and a fine of $50 to be paid upon your release. Fiona gasped, tears filling her eyes. It wasn't freedom, but it was far better than the years of imprisonment or worse that had seemed inevitable. As Amos was led away, he looked back at Fiona, relief and shame mingling in his expression. She tried to smile, to reassure him, but found she couldn't quite manage it. Outside the courthouse, Adam helped Fiona onto her horse. I'll get you back to William, he said. Then we can talk about what happens next. The ride back was as quiet as the journey in, but for different reasons. Fiona's mind whirled with conflicting emotions, relief that Amos would return to them, anger at his foolishness, and growing confusion about her feelings toward the man riding beside her. After retrieving William from Mrs. Dawson, they returned to the homestead as the sun began its descent. Adam built a fire while Fiona put William to bed, the routine now strangely familiar between them. 30 days, Fiona said finally, sitting across from Adam at her kitchen table. We can survive that. Adam nodded. You can. And I'll help when I can. But... He hesitated. But what? What happens when Amos comes home? Will things go back to how they were? The question cut to the heart of what Fiona had been avoiding. In just a week, Adam had become essential to her survival, both practically and emotionally. His steady presence, his unwavering support, had sustained her through the darkest days she'd ever known. I don't know, she admitted. Amos is my husband. William's father. I understand. Adam stood, moving toward the door. I should go? It's late. Adam. His name stopped him. Thank you. For everything. I don't know what we would have done without you. He looked back at her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. You're stronger than you know, Fiona Turner. You would have found a way. The next month passed in a blur of activity. True to his word, Adam helped when he could, riding over every few days to check on them, bringing supplies and news of Amos. But he kept a careful distance now, professional and kind, but lacking the warmth that had developed between them before the trial. Fiona missed their easy conversations, the comfort of his presence. But she understood his withdrawal. What had been necessary during a crisis became complicated in its aftermath. The day of Amos's release, Adam rode with her to town. He waited outside the jail while she went in to greet her husband. Amos emerged looking older, thinner, but clean and sober. He embraced Fiona tightly, burying his face in her neck. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "So sorry, Fiona." "I know," she said, holding him. "Let's go home." Outside, Adam stood with their horses. Amos straightened at the sight of him, his arm tightening around Fiona's waist. "Ryder," he acknowledged stiffly. "My wife says I owe you my freedom." Adam shook his head. "Just did what anyone would do." "But it wasn't anyone. It was you." Amos extended his hand. "Thank you. For looking after my family, too." Adam accepted the handshake, his eyes briefly meeting Fiona's over Amos's shoulder. "They're worth looking after." The ride home was awkward, conversation sporadic. Fiona could feel tension building between the men, unspoken questions and assumptions hanging in the air. At the homestead, William greeted his father with curious eyes, not recognizing the man who had been gone for over a month. Amos's face fell as his son cried and reached for Fiona instead. "He'll remember you soon enough," Fiona assured him. "He's just not used to you yet." Adam stayed only long enough to help unload supplies, then prepared to leave. "If you need anything," he began. "We'll be fine," Amos said firmly, his arm once again around Fiona's waist. "Thanks to you." Fiona watched Adam ride away, a strange hollowness opening inside her. She turned to Amos, determined to rebuild what they had lost. But the days that followed revealed how much had changed. Amos was quieter, more withdrawn. He worked hard on the homestead, seemingly determined to make amends through physical labor. But he rarely spoke of his time in jail or of the events that had led to it. At night, he held Fiona as if afraid she might disappear, but a distance remained between them built of his shame and her unspoken resentment. 2 weeks after Amos's return, Adam rode up to their homestead. Fiona was alone, Amos having taken their wagon to a neighboring farm to trade for seed. "I'm leaving," Adam announced without preamble. "Got a job offer up north. Cattle drive to Oregon." Fiona felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "When? Tomorrow." He didn't meet her eyes. "Thought I should say goodbye. Make sure you folks are settled." "We're managing," she said, the words feeling hollow. Adam nodded, still not looking at her directly. "Good. That's good." They stood in awkward silence, so different from the easy companionship they had developed during Amos's absence. "I never properly thanked you," Fiona said finally. "For everything you did." "You did, actually. Several times." His smile was brief, but genuine. "It wasn't enough. You saved us, Adam." At the sound of his name on her lips, he finally met her gaze. What passed between them in that moment remained unspoken, the acknowledgement of feelings that had grown in the midst of crisis, feelings that honor dictated must be buried. "I should go," he said softly. Fiona nodded, her throat tight. "Safe travels." He mounted his horse, tipping his hat to her one last time. "Take care of yourself, Fiona Turner." She watched him ride away, tears blurring her vision. It was the right thing, the only thing that could happen. She had made vows to Amos. They had a child together, a history, a future to rebuild. But as Adam's silhouette disappeared over the ridge, Fiona allowed herself to acknowledge, just for a moment, what might have been under different circumstances. The wagon's approach pulled her from her thoughts. Amos returned, his face lighting up at the sight of her on the porch. Whatever his flaws, whatever mistakes he had made, he loved her. That much was clear. "Was that Ryder I saw riding out?" he asked as he climbed down from the wagon. Fiona nodded. "He's leaving for Oregon. Came to say goodbye." Amos was quiet as he unloaded the seed. Finally, he said, "He's a good man." "Yes," Fiona agreed. "He is." That night, after William was asleep, Amos took Fiona's hands across the table. "I know things have been strained between us," he said. "I know what I did. It broke something." Fiona started to protest, but he shook his head. "Let me finish. I saw how he looked at you today, and how you looked at him." His grip tightened on her hands. "I wouldn't blame you, Fiona, if you had feelings for him. He was here when I wasn't. He protected you when I failed. Amos, but I'm asking you for a chance to make things right. To be the husband you deserve, the father William needs." His eyes, so similar to their son's, pleaded with her. "Can you give me that chance?" Fiona looked at the man before her, flawed, humbled, but hers. The man she had chosen, for better or worse. The father of her child. Yes, she said finally. We can try. It wasn't an immediate healing. Trust, once broken, takes time to mend. But over the following months, they rebuilt their marriage day by day. Amos worked tirelessly to improve their claim, staying away from town and its temptations. Fiona learned to forgive, though she never forgot the lessons of those difficult days. William grew, taking his first steps, speaking his first words. Their life settled into new rhythms. Occasionally, news would reach them of Adam Ryder. He'd made it to Oregon, found work on a large ranch, was doing well. Fiona accepted these updates with a calm smile, wishing him well in her heart while remaining committed to her choice. A year after Amos's return, they welcomed a second child, a daughter they named Hope, for what they had found again together. Holding their newborn between them, Fiona and Amos shared a look of understanding. They had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, their love tempered by adversity rather than broken by it. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when Amos took the children outside to look at the stars, Fiona would think of a sandy-haired cowboy with kind eyes who had appeared when they needed him most. She would feel gratitude, a touch of wistful wondering, but no regret. Life had offered her a choice, and she had chosen this family, this love, this future they continued to build together day by day. In the end, that was the greatest gift Adam Ryder had given them, not just Amos's freedom or their survival, but the opportunity to choose each other again, with clear eyes and open hearts, to rebuild what was broken and find that it could be stronger at the mended places. To discover that love, true love, was not just passion or comfort, but a daily decision to face life together, come what may.